this part of the presentation is just to get your mind boiling about the possibilities, okay? Just to get your mind active. It will be extremely easy to follow, all right? This is the common folk type of approach of quantum physics and spirituality. Next frame. We call this quantum Buddhism. First off, since quantum physics and its link to spirituality is so new, we're not used to it, okay? So we didn't establish a valid dictionary yet, okay? So some people use different words to speak of the same thing, okay? Let's say we want to speak of a vehicle, a car, an automobile, okay? Or let's say we want to speak of love and being in a relationship or having an husband, and we use different words to speak of the same things. But the most disturbing thing is sometimes we use a single word to speak of different things. I'm going to take another easy way. We use the words love, and some people relate to having a sexual intercourse. Some people relate to just kissing. Some people relate to having lunch with someone. Some people relate to being emotionally engaged. Some people think about great friendship, and some people use love as universal and undetached. And everybody has a different way. Okay, so whatever the words I'm going to use, I'm going to be as precise as possible, but understand that these words might not have the same meaning for you than for me, and I'm going to try to define these according to my experience. It doesn't mean I'm right. It simply means this is what I mean when I use this word. Okay? Next. So, you look at, let's say, different people, two kids, little girl, little boy, and an adult standing too tall that he's off the frame. Looking at a sphere, and this side is a bit more red, this side is a bit more blue, and this side is a bit more green, okay? It's the same ball. It reflects differently according to who's watching it, okay? So the girl says, oh, the ball is like translucent a bit, and mirror-like, and holographic, and hard to grasp, but from my point of view, it's red. And the little boy says, no way, it's blue. Okay? And you got a grown-up saying, you're green, it's green, and you'll understand when you grow up. Okay? You remember this? All right. So, you might have Muslims here, and Christians here, and Hindus here, just having different perspectives on the same thing. Okay? So, I'm not using scientific examples. Usually I do scientific examples about this, but I'm going to use spiritual examples because we're more a bunch of spiritualists than the scientific people. Okay? So, let's say people speak about God in different ways, and Buddhists say there's no God, but it depends on their interpretation because there's a supreme consciousness that is everywhere and is intelligent. Well, that's also the definition of God according to some people. Or other people say God is some old geezer with a long beard standing on a cloud somewhere, and if you pay your church enough, you'll receive a pizza within half an hour or it's free. Okay? So it depends on your type of interaction with your God. I love it. So, to grasp something, you need to experience it from many angles. Okay? Or else you won't get it. You'll just get your perspective, convince you're right, and you will be missing the point, because when it is looked from the outside, it's intellectual. So you need to intellectually go around the subject from many angles, take other people's point of view, and then finally feel it. Take a breath and try to feel what it means for you. Okay? Next slide. Words have meaning only when they are attached to an experience. So, this is simulation of a snowball, and these are grains of snow, and this little guy seems to be black in a desert, wondering what the hell is that? So if you go to the desert and you explain intellectually snow to some guy in the desert, never seen, never experienced it. So you say, it's white cotton falling from the sky, it's cold. When it touches you, it becomes water. He's going to say, what? What the hell are you talking about? Do you have food? I mean, he's going to take care about his situation. But if you bring them to the north, bring the villagers from the desert to the north, in Siberia, let's say, or a nice place where there's a bit of snow, let them taste it, play with it, let them see it fall from the sky. It's going to touch them and turn water. Ah, snow! They'll get it, because now it will be an experience. It will make sense. Okay? So we're not into science yet, we're into how can you grasp the depths of scientific truth. It's by feeling and experiencing the knowledge instead of just thinking it. Okay, next slide. It was found that we have an influence, okay? In our mind, we have an influence on particles and matter in the universe, okay, around us. We do have an influence on particles. We don't seem to have an influence on a ball. Let's say you have this big, heavy, 20-pound weight that is round, and you're trying to make it roll with your mind. Ah, telekinesis, that would be cool. It doesn't move, because it's so big, it obeys to mechanical physics. But at the level of particles, like the behavior of water, behavior of our hormones, behavior of how it works inside us, at the particle level, it doesn't obey to the laws of mechanical physics, but quantum physics, which are different. Okay? Particles always try to adapt themselves to your mindset, or what you keep inside, especially at the emotional level. Okay? How did they discover this? They put a particle cannon here, shoot particles through a board with 2 slits, okay? And they were expecting to see 2 bars appear on the screen, okay? Next slide. What they saw was an inference pattern like this, okay? Meaning that when the particles went through this slit and this slit, they acted like waves instead of particles. They just rippled and mixed together to make this little pattern here. Okay, next slide. This is the actual pattern that they got. This is a real photo of the next one. 2 frames back. Okay, so to understand what happens when the particles go through these slits and make the inference pattern that you saw in the next frame, they put observation devices around here. Okay, they put devices to monitor the behavior of particles, and when they did this, they got it on again, they got the cannon on again, and they got 2 wonderful bars. So they say, whoa, we must have done something wrong, because like an hour ago, we were getting this wonderful interference pattern saying that particles are waves and not grains of sand. But now we put measurements device there, and all we got is 2 slits, 2 lines. So next frame. They removed the observation equipment to say maybe they did something wrong. And they get the inference pattern again, meaning that particles are waves in potential. Previous frame. They put the observation device again, and I got bars. And they thought about it, and philosophically they found out. When you observe particles, they are tangible masses. And when you don't observe particles, they exist in potential waves. Okay? That also means that since someone is not currently in the back room in the back, there is no mind contemplating it, it is not currently tangible. And this is scientifically proven. It is there, but not as physical mass. It is there only as potential, and the moment it goes there, we'll look at it, focus on it, and it will become dense again. Okay? So nature is hardened, becomes dense and tangible, and granular, granular as in grains of sand, when there is a mind or consciousness paying attention to it. This means that if a particle exists in potential, and you look at it in a certain way, it will try to adapt your way. This means that if you don't think about your health, natural forces are affecting your health. But when you start thinking about your health, your body adapts to the mindset you have. This explained psychosomatic effects. So if you are convinced to be sick, you'll become sick. Because all at the particle level, your hormones and your bloodstream and your cells will start to adapt to try to fit in your mindset. Alright? So this is now scientifically proven through quantum physics. And if in your mind you keep the idea that you are completely healthy, it doesn't mean that you'll be completely healthy. It means that you will have a mind influencing nature to be as healthy as possible. But of course, natural forces still affect you. Okay? You can think yourself to be immortal. It's not enough to be immortal. You're probably going to die eventually. Okay? There's a good chance. Next rank. So, this is the most scientific part of the entire presentation. It's how they found out that when you observe a particle, it is granular, and when you don't observe it, it's potential. It's a wave. Okay? Next. And next. This device was focused on, looked at, for an hour, thinking that water is at pH 7. Okay? This device was built by William Tiller to grasp quantum influence. Okay? Quantum mind influence. Okay? And we're still scientific here. This is not science fiction. Next slide. They put the device next to a container of water at pH 6. And this device was turned on. And it was filled with the mind influence pH 7. Okay? So they put it next to this source of water, and very quickly the water's pH stops dropping. Now, do you see these numbers, right? Or are they too much on the... They're good enough? You see a 6 here? 6.1? They start to drop while the ions reorganize, and very quickly starts to go back up. And after like a few days, 6,700 minutes, after a few days, it's almost at pH 7, it's at pH 6.8. Because water is mostly particle, okay? So the way water behaves more according to rules of quantum physics than mechanical physics, okay? And this water container was completely hermetically sealed off and could not have been altered in any single way. Usually you store water at pH 6 in a non-influenced water with only CO2 as a pack, okay, as the atmosphere, the layer of gas on it, and it will never change in 10,000 years of pH, okay? It will not alter. And only in a few days. So these little dots are when they were in the office, and these were when they were in bed, so there's no reading, but they just linked the 2 points. So every day they took a bunch of readings, okay, to get the pH, and notice that after a few days the water readapted to fit the mindset previous. The mindset of this device, which is an intention imprinted emitting device, IIED, okay, it's a YED. Intention imprinted device. You can go to tiller.org to see that. It's quite fun. Okay. Next frame. Next frame. There's a guy named John Hagelin, Nobel Prize. He's the one who worded unified quantum field. He's the guy who revealed his perception of the single unified quantum field of non-particle. Okay? And he said to himself, if our mind has an influence over our body, does it have an influence outside on other things? And he found out that we are interconnected. It's a unified quantum field. At the quantum level, we're unified, where at the mechanical level, we look separated. Like, you're there, I'm here. Okay, this is separation. But at the quantum level, we're unified. There's only one blob of immense field waves, and we're part of it. Okay? So you and I are exactly the same thing, but at the mechanical level, we feel separated and we exist as individuals, which is good, because we can evolve because of that. We are souls. Okay? We evolve. We're individual. So what John Hagelin did is, in a span of 8 weeks, he went to the city with the highest crime rate. And he said, we are going to sit in meditation and influence the entire city of Washington to drop its crime rate by 20%. And the cops laughed, and they cooperated only because they wanted to see it for their own eyes. But I mean, everyone laughed. But as the calls were coming in, their attitude changed, and they started to enjoy it. Because in the first week, there was 600 people, 650 people meditating, and after a few weeks, a bit more, but then people jumped. The word got out that people were meditating for peace in Washington, and eventually there was 3,000 something, almost 4,000 people meditating, and the crime rate was dropping dramatically until it was 23.3% down. Because 4,000 people in a state of meditation thinking Washington is at peace. It's 4,000 times 4,000, okay? So it's in the 60 million units of influence, okay? So a conscious person has more influence than a subconscious person, someone just enacting their role, not consciously thinking, okay? So these 4,000 people, gathered together to just contemplate, being conscious of a state of peace in all Washington. They influenced the entire city. And that was the first time John Hagelin pulled this off. He did it 52 times afterwards. And the last, well, he probably did it again, but in last February 2009, he was in Afghanistan, 690 something people. I'm not sure the numbers because I don't have my papers with me, but 600 something people meditating on peace in a war zone. And I think it was February 2008. Anyway, the cost of war dropped, the injuries dropped, amount of bullets shot, amount of bombs exploded, amount of anything related to war dropped. Until government found out there was a bunch of hippies meditating on peace in the middle of the war zone and got evacuated. And the wars kept on going. So these guys are Nobel Prizes, great middle level doctors that are scientifically looking at how our state of mind is affecting reality. Okay? And we do have this influence. So when we say you have to keep positive thinking slowly and progressively changes your life. Okay? Next. So we did experiments with plants. This is quantum Buddhism experiments. Control group is planting 3 seeds, and one of them just never kicked off. These are 2 normal seeds, okay? Because usually this packet was here. We rearranged the streams, and because this one was here, it was very close. Well, in fact, this one was here, and it was very close to the influence we made on this group of plants to prevent it from stemming, from becoming alive. And you see that these plants did not become alive because we did an experiment to influence them not to grow. Okay, and we did an experiment on these plants to grow, and they have, after a few measurements, 238% more growth speed than normal growth of plants. Okay? Because we were in the mindset, in a specific mindset, and we imposed this mindset on the seeds and then let them off. Okay? That was the result of 1 minute of influence, and then just let them be. Okay? 1 minute of influence got them to grow very quickly, but this influence weakened, and after 3 weeks every plant was exactly the same height. Except for this group, that everything was bigger and richer, and the leaves were stronger and bigger, but it was the same height. Okay? It just picked up its natural pace. But with 1 minute of conscious mind influence, and we're not talking about just wishful thinking, okay? It's not your intellectual state of mind, it's not your thought. It's a way to sink inside through feeling state of consciousness. which is different from thinking mind. It exists in a state of consciousness. And what we did is put these seeds in meditation. We put them in a state of self-contained happiness. And they just sat there and didn't grow. Except this little green dot. And after 3 weeks, this one was, like, let's say, half the size of all the other ones. Okay? In this one, we put a state of being. Alright? Power! Wanting to live! And I'm afraid of dying. And we use a Sanskrit mantra of death that provoked us to be in a great state of fear dying, and we pushed this on there, and it had nothing to do with the mantra we used. It had to do with the state of being, the great drive to exist in a visceral way, in our guts. Ah! And we put this on these plants and just go wham, like this. Alright? Because there are ways to manage your state of mind and state of being, which has nothing to do with what your intellect is actually interpreting. Oh, I'm thinking of this, it's going to happen. I always think of chance before I go to the casino. Maybe it's going to turn away my chance. No, your mindset is willful thinking. Never works. It will never work. Okay? So that's an experiment we did. That was phase 3. Now we're getting ready for phase 4 with 60 plants and writing a design experiment for whoever wants to try it at home. They can try it and see for themselves how to do it. But to do this kind of experiment, you need to know how to put yourself in different states of being. This is quite easy for those who've been studying with me for at least 6 months or 1 year. It's easy to put yourself in a state of being. You take a breath, you go, you modulate it, you have to integrate your emotions related to it, and then you're free to use it if you want. Anyway, we'll speak about it later. Next slide. What you see here, who can name the colors of this rainbow? Can you name all the colors there? Everyone? Okay, Richella, name them. The colors on the rainbow. Here.
Red, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet.
No, this is the colors that are written next to it. Name the colors here. They're infinite. Okay, it's an infinite range. But all that we see in our mind is the limited labels that we put because we were trained to. Okay? Child goes to school, we're going to teach you about colors. Look at a rainbow. There's red, there's yellow, and green, and blue, and indigo violet. And not so long after, they stop drawing rainbows like they see them as a range of colors, but they draw specific lines. And then you show them a real rainbow, and they will just repeat the conditioning. Oh, there's red, they'll just repeat the colors. Because we are trained to stop perceiving reality as it is, continuous. We are trained to see it only according to our conditioning. Alright? Do you understand this? It's like a clock. There's a circle, we put lines in there. Don't forget, we are the ones that put the lines on this clock. Okay? You weren't born with a calendar up your intestine, okay? You were not born in a, like God did not create the universe Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. Okay? This is our system. Okay? Nature is just a continuous flow of uninterrupted frequency and state of being. Alright? We perceive it as all separate. Next. So, some people say we have material world, spiritual world, and we have 7 bodies, or 10 bodies, or 5, or 4, or 14. Depends on your religion, set of belief, your conditioning, or which New Age book you read. But you don't have 7 bodies, you have 1. Okay? But everywhere where it makes sense, like this seems to be thought, this seems to be emotion, this seems to be motion and life and physical, so we put labels. But you see, I didn't put words here, what was in physical, life, emotional, mental, and this, and the soul, and I didn't put labels on this scale, I just left it as a scale, and the number of bars in it doesn't really matter. Okay, just to show you it's a scale. But we have one body that goes from self, soul, down to a material world, and it's uninterrupted. Okay, it's one thing. And the lower part of it will degrade and die, and we'll try to produce another one through reincarnation. That's if you believe in reincarnation. By the way, there's no scientific proof that reincarnation exists. When people have memories, it might be just catching up someone else's conscious flow in the past. Okay? So if you don't believe in reincarnation, I mean, I don't really care myself if it exists. Personally, I don't care. It might not. Whatever, okay? But there are too many proofs that human beings here are consciously living or remembering experiences that other humans lived. So we say, this could be reincarnation, it could be just being conscious of the collective consciousness and you just tap into someone, okay? That's just a parenthesis. So, that was a little parenthesis on when you die and we come back, but for whoever's available to it. So, there's a scale. Let's go back to the science. Next. Your normal awareness goes from physical to emotional and mental, and then it's quite off. We're not conscious of what goes on everywhere else up to the spiritual world, okay? So, why do we meditate? Or why do we do spirituality? Why do we integrate our emotions and recognize our ego? Why do we do personal growth? The goal is to expand this state of being, okay? We want to expand on the perception we have of reality. When we do meditation, next. When we do meditation, we obtain a state that's called samadhi, okay? Complete absorption. Okay? When we meditate or do spiritual stuff, sometimes we lose consciousness at the human level and we think that we went to sleep, but in fact we transcended. We went into samadhi, which is being aware of higher levels of consciousness that are not tangible, so our human forgets. Next slide. So you see there's a little dent here in between the samadhi and the normal consciousness that represents when we go from normal awareness to elevated consciousness. We lose whatever is below that line, we just lose it, okay? We lose consciousness a bit, we stay absorbed into something, and then we come back. Okay? The goal is to stretch, next slide. The goal is to stretch our awareness so it will encompass everything. So to become aware of what goes on in the spiritual realm, okay, or the mind realm, like physics, quantum physicians would do, quantum physics, scientific research. So the goal is to become conscious of all our possibilities, okay, all our states of mind, so we can be empowered and have the potential to influence space and time, okay? And this is how we can consciously alter nature, okay? There was a time we called it magic. Now we call them applied quantum physics, okay? Next. Samyak somebody is having an absolute perfected mind where you are always conscious of everything non-stop. Okay, next. So this bracket, we'll call it C, okay, little c. Now we're entering the second most difficult part to understand, and I won't be that clear. I'll just speak and you try to figure it out, and if you don't get it, it doesn't matter, okay? Because you're gonna get the mainstream idea is while you work on yourself to become a good person and have a good mind and a good heart, your ability to influence matter and nature increases dramatically. Okay? So this scale we'll call little c. Next. I'm going to skip this part. Next. Okay, so big I, big D is equal to little psi, little I. Okay? Our influence on dimension is equal to our range of consciousness and conscious integrity. Next. Okay. What do I mean by that? What we want is to influence dimension, okay? And big I, big D, you have it here, right? What we want to do when we wish to become a master of our life is influence nature or influence dimension, okay? Let me remind you that you'll have a video of this to watch on your computer. If you miss something, you'll come back to it, okay? If you want to gain mastery of your life, of your body, the first thing you want to master is your own body, to keep it as healthy as possible, to avoid using medicine and traditional means to keep you as healthy and safe as possible, and to live happy in your body as long as possible, okay? So what you want to do is learn how to influence space-time dimension and the matter contained in it, okay? You can do this by developing your consciousness range and your consciousness integrity. The range, we got that, okay? It's through meditation, personal growth, and all this stuff. And you become aware of more things by feeling them, not by thinking them, all right? Now, consciousness integrity. What is this consciousness integrity? The integrity you have to just exist as consciousness instead of a conditioned human. For example, the scientific dude is in his lab. He's trying to observe an atom or a mass of atoms with nothing in his mind, trying not to influence them. Or he's trying to influence them in a precise direction that is not conform to a set of beliefs. Okay? It's going to be difficult if this guy comes back home, sees his son playing guitar with his friend because he wants to be a rock star, and the scientific guy wants his son to become a lawyer or a doctor. Okay? So he's got this kind of expectation and behavior control. Then he comes in the dining room and supper is not ready. He had expectations. Okay? And then goes to bed at night and has other types of expectations. Okay? So this guy wants to come back and see something as subtle and fragile as atomic form and not affect them in this conditioned way. Forget it. You need to develop consciousness integrity to purify your integrity as consciousness and not just behave like a conditioned mind, because you were conditioned by your hormones as a male to expect female to obey, or as a female to expect your male to defend you or take part in your way of seeing life. And if you're conditioned this or that way to think that there's only 7 or 6 colors on the rainbow, or conditioned to think that you have to be there by 9 or else you won't be in schedule. Of course, by the way, you need to be responsible in your life and get there on time to work. We made this system for a reason. We made these systems because we want to become efficient. Okay? We want to work together. And if you want to be paid for your work, you need to comply to a certain set of rules. So keep doing that. But stop believing that it is the law. Okay? You need to get to the point where you know you are willingly complying with society's ways, because it is a means to become efficient, and it is a means for you to gain money. Okay? Not because the boss will be mad if you get in late. Not because you're ashamed. Not because you are afraid that the system will not love you. Okay? So you need to understand, why are you obeying the conditioning and not have the conditioning just put force on you and not be a master of your life. Okay? So we'll talk about that later. Okay? So consciousness integrity is all, it has to do with personal growth, but also freeing your mind and expanding your perception of reality as it is and not as it was conditioned to perceive. Alright? Next. So if I times D equals C times I, it also means that the D can be shifted below that and divided. So your threshold of influence is equal to your conscious range times integrity divided or spread upon the dimensional area you want to affect. Now that seemed to be quite scientific a bit. I'll recap that. Okay. Your influence, okay, the big I is a threshold, is an indication that says you need to gather such an amount of influence for it to crush the space-time dimension. Okay? If you want to override nature, if you want to have an influence that will be powerful of just the natural ways of doing, you need to gather a certain amount of influence, okay, potential. This influence potential is your consciousness range and integrity. The more you have integrity and your range is expanded, the more you have a potential of influence to change nature. Okay? Integrity. Previous frame. Previous frame. Okay. Sorry. Thank you. I was looking that way. Change it. Change it. Change it. But I was out of my range of perception. Okay? I was conditioned. That was my lack of integrity. Okay? And now I became arrogant. Hey, hey, hey! And I was careful not to flash in his eyes. Okay? You see, we're all like that. Alright? And a bit of humor is good. Although it wasn't on purpose and I got through. So, alright. Integrity is when you are not obeying a conditioning. You are free to do whatever you want, whenever you want, but you will still behave in society in a respectful manner because you want to, not because society is about to punish you out of fear. Understand that? If you behave in society with compassion and respect, you can have a free mind, and the conditioning is not overpowering you. You will be using the system because you want to, and then you'll be coming back home, and you will not mind what your son does for a living as long as he finds happiness, and you'll try to guide him in the greater way. And it doesn't matter if the meal is not ready, you can take care of it or you can wait. It doesn't matter if your woman will comply, because you can take care of yourself without shame. Okay? I mean, I'm just over-reviewing this so that you'll get the point, because sometimes we do not really like to address the surface sexuality, okay? But it is something that is part of human life, so we just mention it and then forget about it, not to disturb the young guys who are 15-year-old, and mother specifically asked, please don't talk about sex. Okay, so we're going to avoid that. I'm not telling your name, but I'm talking about you, you know it. Okay? Because usually, like the old geezers there, they know how I love to speak about sex in a seminar, at least once, for 5 minutes. So, yeah. Next one. Next. Okay, so this is just a little vision I had. It popped into my mind while I was in the transcendental state. I was walking around asking Supreme Consciousness, how can I express scientifically, or as close as possible scientifically, even in a philosophical manner, to a crowd of scientific people, what I experience when I alter space and time, when I do these shifts, when I influence my body to be in this or that state, okay? How can I express it? And this is the thing that popped into my mind. And I said, yeah, and what is that? and consciousness replied in a funny way, do I have to explain everything? And I said, yes. So it started to divide. It was some kind of game. Sometimes consciousness plays with itself. It's so funny. And it became that, and from there I got it. It could become here. Big I is not your influence. It's the threshold of influence you must build. The amount of potential influence you must build inside you, so to override the dimension. Okay? Alright? End of presentation.